like close to 100x with Nvidia. That's just insane. Got 100 bagger just by working at a company. How does it feel?
I was trying to be incredibly smart by selling my Nvidia stock and investing it into index funds because I did boggle it. Like I kept some, but I sold a lot of it.
This is Vibhu Jawa. He's a senior machine learning engineer at Nvidia.
I openly share my salary with my peers.
If I was at Nvidia and everybody around me was like a multi-millionaire, I would have so low motivation to work.
We talked about wealth and Nvidia stocks, of course.
Money will remove your problems, but it won't make you happy.
I'll tell you how much I make. I'll tell you how much my net worth is. Is Silicon Valley still the place to be for engineers and for scientists?
After studying in a top-tier college in India and then doing his master's at Johns Hopkins, I asked him why programs today are insufficient to land your first role.
Most curriculum is outdated the day it's written.
I challenged him to design a step-by-step playbook for someone trying to land their first role.
The biggest signal that you can give me if I was recruiting people.
Here's the full episode.
How are you doing, man?
Hey man, hey Nikhil, how are you doing? Dude, whenever anyone says 12 years, I feel so fucking old. Like, wow. In my head, I'm still in my, I don't know, early 20s, but here we are at different parts of the world, catching up again. Life
Yeah, I think
has
at this time, I just learned to accept it.
But yeah, in general, life has been kind. Work has been interesting. And yeah, life's been good. It's been a long journey, but I'm glad to catch up with you. It's like in my head, I still
Yeah.
remember you from.
And you're in India right now?
Yeah, I'm in India right now. Yeah, I'm getting married this month, so that's exciting. That requires a lot more
Yes.
planning than I am prepared for. So that's fun, getting my head around it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had 3 weddings, so like with the same person. But so I think I've done it, Dustin. No more weddings. But this is so cool, man. Like, and I work for Amazon, from 2016 till 21. I think that was a 5x in Amazon stock, roughly.
Yeah.
And I was pretty dumb. So in the sense that it took me 5 years to realize myself, like I got into like understanding financial independence and goals like much later in life. And, it took me 5 years to realize, oh my God, everything I do is tied to Amazon. Like my stay, like if my company fires me, I have to leave the country today. All of my salary goes to zero because I'm not employed by Amazon anymore. And all my stocks, 100% of my portfolio was Amazon. So it did well. And I got so lucky. And then I think after that point in time, I was like, okay, I need to be very careful, of how much portfolio I have with Amazon. But tell me about yours, man. Like close to 100x with Nvidia. That's just insane. Like, in the investing world, they say like, if like God is kind to you, you get a 10x in your life.
Yeah.
And, if you've truly made it, you get 100 in your life. So like, I think you're the only one of the few folks I know who's almost got 100 bagger just by working at a company. How does it feel then? What has changed?
Dude, yeah, like I was trying to be incredibly smart by selling my Nvidia stock and investing it into index funds because I did boggle it. Like I kept some, but I sold a lot of it. But that's fine. Like life is still kind. I still get refreshers and everything, and that's still tied up. But yeah, like it's always the flip of the coin that hey, like sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm gonna read through all these finance books and come up with a strategy which is less optimal than my
I
friends
got this,
who.
bro. I got this, bro. No, with that thought, you're like, you're reading this finance book, saying, I got this, bro. Like, I will never be, I'll be diversified.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you work at Nvidia, which is the one outlier, the one outlier out of
Dude, I have friends who are just too lazy to check in their accounts. Like, yeah, it's just that there is. And they are at an order of magnitude more wealth than I am, which is fine. Hey, that's life. I can't complain too much. I still got a great financial outcome.
Tell me about money. Like, so for me, I realized that the number one thing I love spending money on is family. Like, it's just unreal because especially I live far away. So I'm waiting for that period when I go back home and I can do a little bit of luxury to my family, because that is the biggest, ROI in my life has been that. Take out your, for example, my mom is not there anymore as well. So it's
Yeah.
only my dad. I'm like, okay, now I have just one person I can really pamper. But even then, I realized that money has its negatives as well. Like you need to be, um, like it came your way, but you have to be smart enough to not let it go and to grow it. But also at the same time, you have to unlearn a few things. Ki har jagah, you don't need to save money anymore. Like, that is for me has been a little bit of unlearning that I had to do, is not think about money all the time. Was that similar for you?
Yeah, dude. So, like, I can relate with that so much. Like, the unlearning of not being anxious about money, but not always thinking about, hey, like, how can I make the best financial outcome at every point? I used to, like, because also, like, when your portfolio is tied up so much to one particular stock, like, the amount of thinking and energy that goes into, because I had never seen this amount of money. So the amount
Right.
of energy just I was spending just looking at my portfolio every day was just stupid. And then unlearning that habit that, hey, it's fine, you have enough. That those numbers are
Yeah.
just numbers. Nothing in your life is gonna change by you looking at them was definitely a thing that I've tried to unlearn and I still try to unlearn. And totally like pampering family and
Right.
taking them on trips is like the most fun I have in these
Yeah.
things. And even right now, like I'm getting married, my mom wants to do the whole lavish affair. Like I couldn't care more about it. But I'm like, yeah, you are happy, right? It's fine. I'll just spend money on it. That's the outcome that
Right.
I'm looking for out of this wedding. So
Right.
yeah, that the ability to do that and not be worried and make sure that she is not worried about it. I think that just gives me so much more joy than
Yeah.
anything else that I could personally buy.
Right. Yeah. Does and one more curious question. Like I think I realized this when I was traveling recently. Is like I look at a business class when I'm traveling and I'm like, yeah, I could afford it, but no point. It's okay. And I
Yeah.
would sit in a very nice car. I was like, okay, I could afford it. Or I go to a house, like I could afford it. So there's that sense of, okay, I could do it, but it's just unbelievably nice to be just saying no to stuff, because it's not just getting that thing. There's just so much more
Yeah.
complication. For example, I'm a person, if I get a fancy car or if I get something nice, I would want to use it, to utilize it. Why get that headache, So like, has that ever occurred to you? Like, you're okay to splurge, but you don't need to. And that just gives you
Yeah.
unbelievable control.
Yeah. Like I think a lot of joy, like at least what I previously would have thought that is, hey, I wish one day I could afford it. And that's why I
Yeah.
wanted something. It's
Right.
like I was trying to prove something to either the earlier me or to society in general. But now I don't have that burden. So, like, yeah, sure, I can do most things that I want. I just don't have the inner calling for it. Like, I don't see the
Right.
value in doing that. It's
Right.
more of, hey, is how I'll start looking at, does this give me enough joy or not? Or is this
Right.
just a social signal that I'm trying to prove out? And
Yeah.
I think now that idea of social signaling is going down by
Hmm.
quite a margin. And I also think that maybe it's money, maybe it's also because I live in San Francisco and there are people that have
Right.
insane amounts of money and they all live,
Right.
work, wear similar clothes and no one cares about it. So I think
Yeah.
maybe it's the peer group that has also shifted for me that has caused this to
Yeah.
happen.
So, what signaling has taken a weight in your life? Like, what would you say is the inner calling that you feel like spending more time on or energy on? Like, like talk to me about that. Like, that's something that I've been trying to do with this channel and myself as well, is like really figure out like what does inner scorecard mean for people. Now, you said that some other things have gone down in weightage, right? Like your social signaling and what you wear, what you drive, things like that. But what has gone up? Like, what has it created more time for?
I think what I try to do a lot more actively is spend time in India and spend time with family. Like, I think that's what, in my head, that's the limited resource that I have to figure out. And be also making sure that people around me are comfortable in their lives. Like, I think that's where
Right.
I have started spending some more energy towards. And I think also like now I'm generally more curious than I was previously. Because I'm like, yeah, this feels
Yeah.
like a cool thing I should learn about, independent of whether it changes anything in my life or not.
Right. And that sounds
Like, I
interesting.
think
And
that.
talk to me about your work at Nvidia. Like, how has that been? Like, currently, what do you do exactly at Nvidia? Like, give us a brief description about what your work is, and where do you see yourself in the company, or like other big tech? Like, do you see yourself there for longer term? Um, like, talk to me about like your emotion wise, your mental state was like working for that company. And because for
Mm.
me, like, big part was understanding that, okay, like, now I have enough money, do I need to work for somebody? So that's a question that you would yourself be pondering. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so what I think about a lot is, sure, like working, like what I do for NVIDIA is I have been working on AI infrastructure, and essentially I write libraries that power most of machine learning and deep learning that you see today. Like, for example, a
Hmm.
lot of my work, previous work, was used at, say, Netflix for powering their recommendation system. So the underlying libraries that Netflix used was what I did to, to Spotify, to Bumble's matching algorithm. That algorithm came out of a workflow that I created that, hey, now this is possible. And then Bumble picked it up and they use it for their matching algorithm. So a lot of my work is figuring out what's now possible with the current layer of GPUs and AI software we are at. And how do we
Hmm.
actually make it viable from a technology and a deployment perspective? So that's what I do
Hmm.
at Nvidia. Now, why where I see myself long term is a question that's unknown to me. But currently, I'm sure I want to be at Nvidia because I think like life has given me this very lucky chance to be somewhere where I can probably make a dent in the universe, if you
Hmm.
might say. Because so many things
Right.
had to go right for me to be at a place where I can see where the world is heading, and maybe I
Hmm.
can impact humanity here more than I can at any place else in the world, just because
Hmm.
so many things have intersected. I'm at the right place at the right time. And that this feels like a very special place from that perspective. Because again, if the promises of AI are correct, which I like to believe they are, then I think the
Right.
due to some amount of my work and a lot of great work from my colleagues, maybe we have changed the world for better because of
Right.
our places. So that's, I think, a lot of what drives my colleagues. Like, I don't think it's the financial outcome. It's just that we, a lot of us are just very excited to contribute our
Yeah.
little things in the whole humanity picture. It feels more grander
Yeah.
than just, hey, this is a job that I show off in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think my other thoughts were like, if I was at Nvidia and everybody around me was like a multi-millionaire, I would have so low motivation to work. I'd be like, I would need something beyond money to be, like getting
Yeah.
me to work and do actually good stuff. So talk to me about this stuff. I think, do you also feel that your work has a lot of responsibility? Does that come to you? Like, is that a thought that you entertain as well? That it is a cutting edge world, it is a very frontier world, but as you said, like a lot of the work do shapes up what comes next. Does that act like a hanging sword over the neck, like of responsibility?
Not really. I think like my worldview is slightly different. I think like the biggest thing that you can do for humanity is just help push technology progress forward, because humans are incredibly smart and they can engineer their way out of most problems. Like, that
Right.
is a core belief that I have, which, like, even for stuff like climate change to figuring, I think if you enable technology, I think a lot of problems can be solved. And after that, it comes after enabling, it's a matter of choice and prioritization for the race. But what you can
Right.
do, at least towards it, is what's in your control is help push that technology forward. Like, because this is a generic technology, right? So it's not Like it's people like to sometimes draw correlations between AI and nuclear energy and nuclear weapons. I don't think it's that. It's just a
Yeah.
generic technology that can make everything better. And then that's the story of life. Then it's up to humans to decide that, hey, do you want to use this for good or
Right.
bad? And I like to believe that people tend to do things for the good of humanity. That's my general observation of the world. Sure, there are bad actors. So I think
Right.
this is in general overall overwhelmingly good for people across the world. Like if I was a like
Yeah.
I always have this problem. Like I never thought I got good teachers for most of my education, like especially in India and even at
Hmm.
Hopkins. But now each kid can get an AI tutor, right? And that is just mind
Right.
blowing for me. Like, so I think
Right.
that's an amazing thing that's gonna happen. Sure, like these companies are gonna use AI for their personal gain, but in general, the
Right.
technology growth will cause will solve most problems of humanity that we see today.
And do you see that? Like, talk to me about the sense of like a sense in the Silicon Valley. So you moved from New Delhi to the Bay Area, the hub of AI. Do you get that sense of excitement and optimism from people around you? Like at Nvidia and outside Nvidia, people are like generally excited. And as you said, not just from financial, like how to make it more economically viable, but actually they do genuinely they do believe that they're helping humanity.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like the core belief that's running through the valley, in which I see very clear. Like everyone's like, in general, like independent of financial outcome. If there's a cool AI model that now enables you to do something, everyone's very excited about it. Like financial
Right.
outcomes, even for OpenAI, if you look at it, are now coming into the picture. Even when they started, they had no financial outcomes in mind. And
Right.
like just that, hey, now humans can do this one thing that they could never do before. I think that's crazy. And that we are
Yeah.
increasingly seeing that. And I think that's just very exciting to people all around.
So I think that also like talks a lot about people like who are not maybe directly involved with AI, just that this is not something that you need to make a career out of. Like you should be actually just experimenting, tinkering with the like mid journey is amazing. For example, my wife, she's an
Yeah.
artist and she was a more early adopter than me on AI. And I work in AI. Feel like she would tell me about the long ass prompt she would write for Midjourney, and I'm like, wow, that is because like we as technical people, like we would talk to Midjourney very bland. Like we would just say, okay, make this for me. But the way she would describe the lights, the horizons, the angles, I'm like, what is all the description? And her like response, like the first shot response would be so much better, and mine would be like I have to iterate over it. So definitely, like I think I will encourage more people to just play around with it and think about what is possible. And and also talk to me, Vibhu, about like did you when you understood in 2021 2022 that you made enough money, like did you learn certain skills on how to manage this money? Did you have to upgrade, like, update your knowledge about managing money? And so, like in your company, for example, one naive way, or I would not say naive, one of the best ways is actually just to keep it in NVIDIA, right? Which is something that both you and I didn't do. And, that's okay.
Yeah.
You suffered more than me. So, I mean, that's okay. But, but talk to me about something like that you learned about money. Like, so you said that it didn't affect you much, like your lifestyle more or less remained the same. But did you do something differently about managing money, or are you like learning something new about it currently that is something that I could use or people
Yeah.
around me could use?
Yeah, I think one thing that I started to do more is talk to my peers about money in general. Because like I like money was a shy subject at my household. Like I'm sure it's as at a lot of Indian households.
Yes.
And hi, how do you diversify your options? Hey, how do I do private investing? How do I do these things? It's a lot that you should start talking to your peer group about. Hey, even if you don't have the money to invest in, say, a particular company, you should still talk. Like me and my friends keep on doing that. Hey, this feels exciting. This feels like a right opportunity to invest in money because it at least starts giving you ideas on how to invest and what are other ways that other folks around you invest, and like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of debt that you can cover is a lot more um, than previously. So I think that's one thing that I now try to do
Right.
actively, and I think everyone should. That hey, just talk to people that what feels exciting to you. Like I
Yeah.
don't know why people shy away from it. It's like you should just talk more about it
Yeah.
because that
Like
you'll.
I have
It's
this,
not
I
zero
have this
sum.
really,
I have.
yeah, it's not zero sum. It's not like if you know that I have money, like you might treat me differently for a few seconds, or you might even
Yeah,
have that impression. But if you just normalize it, it's like any other, stereotypical thing that, oh,
yeah,
this guy has so much money. So I wonder, like, why do people not, for example, openly or at least semi-openly discuss their salaries at work?
yeah,
Because like it's such a taboo thing that you would discuss everything, you would discuss all the gossip, like how much how many projects you're getting, are you in promotion or not, in the queue for promotion, but you would never mention about what salary, and everybody would just bat an eye on you like, oh, why are you talking about such private thing. And I think that kind of takes away from people. Like a lot of people I met in Amazon, for example, they are working for Amazon primarily because it pays good money, but they're not talking about it
yeah,
at all. So I'm like, this is like such a
yeah,
big, such a big discrepancy. And you said like in Silicon Valley, like you've seen a lot of people like earning way more than like normal humans
yeah.
would, even in US. Um, and you didn't feel a difference like in the way they talk to you, or they're approachable or not. That didn't like happen, right?
No,
But that happens a lot in
yeah,
India, correct?
yeah. I think that happens a lot in India, and yeah, I think also maybe, yeah, I don't understand that why. I think I think India, especially when we were growing up, there were just so many limited opportunities. Like the worldview is still very zero sum in India, and
Mm,
I don't think that's true in Valley. Like if the idea is that you can, it's like life is not zero sum at all there, at least from even
right.
from a monetary perspective. Like if two people discuss opportunities, you'd probably create a bigger opportunity than if you were just going alone at it. And I think that
Right.
mindset shift is a big difference that I still find compare, like if
Yeah.
I compare people in US versus here. Like,
Yeah.
and on the earlier thing that you mentioned, like always have this qualm, and I openly share my salary with my peers, even in my team. I tell them that hey, we are structurally at a disadvantage because our management chain has information arbitrage. They know how much everyone else is getting paid or what the cycles are. The idea, but if you all discuss these things, that information arbitrage decreases. It's not like if you tell me how
Right.
much money you're making, how much money I'm making,
That will
it
have
will
any effect.
anyways
Yeah.
impact, or the only impact
Yeah.
that can be you have more signal that hey, that
Right.
promotion can happen quicker than what your manager is saying if you
Right.
discuss those things with
Yeah.
your peers. That those things are just like you talk to them, you do all discuss strategies
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah.
I've had a mentor at Nvidia that helped me do this, but
Hmm.
I don't, even at Nvidia, I don't think it's a common practice. Like
Yeah.
it's a
No, absolutely. Like I started
mindset shift.
posting about it on my social media as like, this is the number one thing I want to talk to people about, is like, I'll tell you how much I make. I'll tell you how much my net worth is so that we can get it out of the way. So
Yeah,
we're not like, I'm not guessing or you're not guessing. And of course, I understand like a lot of people think that what will their relatives think. And, it's a very Indian thing, is like,
yeah.
you would hide all the secrets. Like you would hide all the best secrets because you don't want them to be exposed and people like taking advantage of you. But that's just pretty sad. But when did you like? What was the feeling like, and when did you realize that in a way that you've made it? Like that feeling of, okay, this is pretty comfortable, or this is like, at least financially this is very
Yeah,
solid.
yeah. So what I do almost every year is I try to create a plan and try to figure out what I've done right this year, what I've done wrong this year, where I stand financially and
Uh huh.
emotionally from relationships and stuff. Then I've been doing this, I don't know, since I was probably 16, 17. So I think it was 2021, 2022 where I realized, yeah, cool. like I have at least made enough that I don't have to particularly worry about money and day-to-day outcomes. Like life is gonna be comfortable from this point from this point on. So I don't have to just that feeling is like, hey, I don't know, like growing up in Delhi, I didn't come from a super affluent family. I came from middle class family like the rest
Yeah.
of us. And there was always this anxiety in my head around money and like having enough so that I can not worry about that as a thing that I'm optimizing my life around. Because I think a lot of it growing up was like, at least I didn't optimize it to the full extent, but I always thought about it. I was always in my head, there's always this thread that, hey, I have to make sure like life is comfortable, especially because like I lost my dad at an earlier age. So that also I think added to it that, hey, I have to be financially responsible for not just me, make sure that like me, my mom and brother now have a shared responsibility towards each other. That, hey, and then that relationship wasn't top down anymore. Does so I think that also, but that anxiety just went away, I think, due to that financial outcome. And I think that's honestly the best thing that that money has bought me, that I don't have to worry about those things anymore. I don't worry
Yeah.
about grocery things. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
worry
Yeah.
about day-to-day expenses at all. Like lifestyle, I don't think my
Right.
lifestyle has grown proportionately to that, because I don't think I as a personality also like to live that large. Like I'm not into fancier cars and stuff. And a surprising thing that also
Right.
happened, that the more money I make, the less appeal those things give to me. That's a
The more
very
you started going to Costco, brother,
yeah.
say it.
Like yeah,
No,
I don't have
this is very
to
relatable.
yeah, I don't have to prove
Yeah.
anything to anyone anymore. It's fine. I know where I'm at.
Right. But isn't that like amazing? Like that's I mean I can totally relate to that. Like, for me, in a way, it was even harder because my dad always pushed me. Like, in a way, I grew up with the thought that if you had money, your life will be amazing.
Yeah.
So the thought was always any problem there'll be like if there was money, I could basically fix that problem by money.
Yeah.
That's how I grew up thinking about life. Like, okay, you're unhappy in your life, you just throw money at it and you become happier. That's
Yeah.
so not true. And it was around the same time when I moved to US and I was like, wow, there's a shitload of money here. But I had to work a lot on the other side of things, which was okay. Now, like you don't have to be saving it up so much. You can enjoy life a little bit more, be more relaxed. You can reduce that anxiety that
Yeah.
is around money, and it has been phenomenal. Like that, just that feeling has been phenomenal. And I agree with you. I think the more money has come into my way, the more I've realized that I could use it for a bigger purpose
Yeah.
because these things don't appeal to me. Like what kind of clothes I wear, like how flashy I live has nothing in my inner scorecard to appeal to me. So also tell me, like, did you do any of these fire stuff, financial independence, retire
Yeah.
early? Were you into
Yeah.
this?
I was into the fire movement. I am very active on the Fat Fires edit. That there are multiple Fat Fires edits. I'm active on the Fat Fires
Fat
edit.
fire.
Yeah, Fat
So
Fires edit
tell me,
for
what does fat fire do? Like, what is the main principle behind
the
it?
the principle behind is you like fire. The principle behind fire is that you are financially independent and you can sustain the lifestyle that you currently have, essentially on the amount of money that like just based on the amount of dividends you can draw from your corpus, or like amount of
Yeah.
money that you can withdraw from your corpus. Fat fire is essentially similar concepts, but the lifestyle is more luxurious. That, hey, you can, like, a lot of fire numbers are built around not taking into account how many international vacations that you might end up taking, or you might want to send your kids to private school, or you might want to save for their future education into these fancy
Right.
American universities. So Fat Fire is
Right.
just taking those numbers into account and making sure that you can
Hmm.
sustain even that lifestyle, even if you
Yeah.
end up retiring early.
Do you think that the goals keep changing as well? Like, are you one of those personalities wherein the goalpost keeps on moving?
Yeah,
I
they
overheard one
they
of my directors at Amazon. I overheard one of the directors at Amazon. He was talking to somebody else, and I confronted him afterwards. And he's a friend of mine. He's a much senior
yeah,
person to me at that time, and he was like, I am like 5 times over the number that I thought. 5 times over the number, and I'm still working
uh,
here. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, that was like, I would never do that. But I'm just wondering, like, how has that been for you? Has the goalpost been changing? And
yeah. Yeah, so like initially it was like initially I had a number in mind, like hey, maybe at X years of money that I won't have to work, and I just kept on doubling it. And after
yeah,
even hitting those, I was like, yeah, sure. But now I think at this point, I think it's ridiculous that if I keep on doing that, I think maybe that was the naivety of youth. And also, I think now I have stopped doing that to an extent, but I was doing that for a long time. Like I was doing that for the last 4 years for sure. That hey, like I'll just like, hey, maybe that
yeah,
I have maybe when I have 2x, I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to think about money. But I have stopped doing that. And I've realized that, yeah, sure, money is one outcome, but I just feel that like there are just other interesting things that I can do. And I
right,
think money will come. I think that's fine. Like I have also enough
yeah,
confidence that hey, like I've stopped thinking about fire a lot more, and I just thought thinking about runway towards that. Hey, I have now this much amount of runway for doing my own thing for the X years and not worrying about it,
right,
and then I'll figure out how to make money from that aspect.
right.
So that's how I
Yeah, so you're
start.
now optimizing also on the curiosity and
Yeah,
like you're just generally just prioritizing more important stuff than money is on the back burner. Like it is
yeah,
growing and you're not actively tracking it.
yeah,
Yeah, that is, I think, like there should be a new term for fire for that. Like you're still employed and
yeah,
you don't have to worry about money.
yeah,
They should make a
yeah,
new term for that.
yeah,
Like you're
like
not thinking about money.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I have heard a lot of people say that. Like it's like fuck you money. Fuck you money is just
yeah,
that yeah, I don't want to be in that meeting with that person in that place. You can just say no. Like
yeah,
there is nothing
like
that a person can offer you that would interest you to be there.
exactly
So
that. Like that pretty much sums it up. Like I
yeah,
don't have to care and optimize about it. Like if say tomorrow my job isn't that interesting, I can probably move
right.
on to other things. The only other thing
Yeah.
that I'm optimizing towards right now is my visa status. So if that happens soon,
Yeah.
then it's completely
Right.
independent. Then I'm like, yeah, sure. Like
Yeah.
I don't care about these things anymore.
Do you think, like you're somebody who's moved from New Delhi to this Silicon Valley working for Nvidia? I'm wondering, like, is Silicon Valley still the place to be for engineers and for scientists? Do you think that it holds that, this charm that it used to have back in 90s, early 2000s? Does it still hold that? Given aside, like, taking into account all the factors around you know, visas and immigration issues, and now like, would you still recommend to a person living in India, working maybe either FANG or one level below
Mm.
FANG, to move to US to get a job here? Do you think that still holds true?
The unpopular opinion is I think that still holds true. Like the amount of concentration of wealth and the peer group that you have here, I think that is still unparalleled. And
Mm,
the amount of opportunities that you can have access to just by living here is even more concentrated today. Because I think Silicon Valley has even more money today than say the early 2000s and 1990s. Sure, it's tougher. The risk is higher to come, which is unfortunate just because of the visa situation and stuff. But from a pure
yeah,
opportunity standpoint, I think this is still the place to be. If you are aiming for big outcomes in life, this place will give
right,
you the most probable luck
right.
opportunities. I think
Mm,
that still holds true. And I
yeah,
think
no,
given the amount of money that's going in Valley, if you look at it's still going exponentially. So I don't see how it will not
right.
hold true for the next 5 to 10 years. Sure, like for Indian citizens, there's the whole visa thing, which is a tough
Mm,
pill to swallow. I don't know how that's gonna end
mm,
up. But if we don't take that into account, I think this is still
right.
the place to end up at. Like
Yeah.
that's, I think,
No,
just
absolutely.
the truth of the world.
Yeah. And do you think like do you have like a generic advice for people like working in corporate in India making 30 to 50 lakhs per annum and they're thinking about that, they're thinking about the fire, they're thinking about retiring early. Can you talk about like certain aspects of like financial independence which is not money related, like which is more like I feel that you have a certain edge when it comes to like you've always, as you said, you have had a little bit anxiety about money, but generally you've been a very calm and composed person, you've been very confident that it will work out. I'm wondering like what are some of the factors that people don't think about when they're thinking about financial independence. I think for me it was a serious break that I took was like these 4 months that I've taken off. The first 1 month, it almost took me a whole month to realize that okay, like you can just relax, you can just just chill out, because that's something I've never done. That's something
Yeah.
that I don't think you can do at like 40 or 45 years old. Just turn off that switch and be like, yeah, I'm done. Very few people could do that. So what has been the growth that you have done, like I would say, apart from just the my numbers, but
Yeah.
to that financial independence?
Yeah. I think like, so when I traveled for a year, when like essentially all I had was just my car and I was driving around America, I ended up talking to people that are not in the valley or that are not like us, like born from competition and sweated through it. And like I was chilling with people that are, just someone who is a stalker at Amazon, and that he was just so. I remember talking with him, and I was just so excited that he could now it was his payday and he could afford cardamom sticks for the coffee that he really liked, and he was so excited about it. And I was thinking to myself, I've never not been this excited about anything that I've bought in the last year. And that switch in my head took me a while to digest that, hey, it's just not about money. You have to realize that finding happiness is a sure, money will remove your problems, but it won't make you happy. That's how I'd like to think about it. So you have
Right,
to work on finding things that make you happy. And that's
right,
another journey that you have to take in parallel when if you're thinking about fire. Like you have to figure out things that give you joy. Cause
right.
like
Because you'll have a lot of time. You'll
yeah.
just get like either you'll be a psychopath or you'll be a happy person, like, because you
Yeah.
just have so much time. What do you do with that?
Yeah. Yep. Like yeah, and
So, uh,
it's not like a lot of our time is just breaks, right? So you just enjoy anything doing which is not in your cycle, but finding things that actually give you joy is very hard. It's not easy.
right.
Like I don't know, it wasn't for
Yeah.
me. Like it took me a while.
What did you find, like what was joy, and how many states did you go to, and what did you find as that gave you joy, like you thought that you could keep doing this and this is just fun?
So I realized that just traveling and meeting new people, I think I that gives me and trying to understand what gives them the kick. I think that's a lot of fun. Like I like to now see what other people find joy in. I like to talk to, and I've also
Yeah.
started talking to old people in my family, which I would have never done.
Yes.
Like, hey, how was your life like? In generally that thing I think is a lot of fun. And B, I think spending money on people that are not you, just the people around you, that gives you more joy for the same amount of money that you'll spend on you. Like, I think that's
Right.
just a strange experience. Yeah, I lived through 9 cities. Probably I traveled to 15 states. Like, if I like when I got say nine, it was like 9 cities I spent a month in, and other places I was just
Yeah.
spent a night, 2 nights in.
So
That was
it's crazy,
insane.
bro. Like, how the hell do you like go to like 15, 19 states while
Yeah.
working for Nvidia and on your car, like there's no home, like hoboing through America. That's just amazing, man. Like, I think
Yeah.
I took a lot of inspiration from you from that moment. I was like, I tried to figure that out, but me and my wife, we couldn't figure it out till then. And then we had a baby and we're
Yeah.
still a little bit hoboing and it's just a little bit
Yeah.
fun. But that was super impressive. I am not, I think you should maybe talk to me about like how did you figure that out? It was just during COVID and you could do remote work. Was that
Yeah,
the idea
yeah,
behind it?
like Yeah, that was like I like Nvidia is still fully remote, so I can still do it. But now, but back then, I also did not have a partner, and I was alone in America. I didn't have any family responsibilities, so a lot of things were just right. So I wasn't tied down by anything, and I realized
Right.
that if I like, I was gonna do the trip before COVID happened. But in COVID, I realized like if I don't do it as soon as it opens up, I don't think I'll ever be able to do it because it was scary. Like I won't lie. Like the first, like I think for the after the second, third week, the novelty wore off, and I had
Right.
existential crisis. Like, okay, I'm not sure what I'm doing but fucking middle of nowhere in Texas. I have no clue why I'm doing this, but I still stuck to it, and I had a great time. So
Yeah. No, I think you realize like when you're pushing yourself through moments and those are like
yeah,
physically and mentally hard, there's no objective there. But
yeah,
things that come out of it, like, you can't even pinpoint that this is why it happened, but it just opens you up to, I think the number one thing it does is like, it just makes you sure that, makes you like aware that you can endure a lot more. And
yeah.
like if you can go through that, then you can go through almost anything, right? So that just gives you that perspective that, okay, life is not that bad. Like that guy who ordered that
Yeah.
cinnamon, coffee, and
Yeah,
it's not that bad just to get by.
yeah, like, that's
No.
good. Like, you can be excited about anything you want in life. It's like
Yeah.
you can't be like, oh, when I get that Lamborghini, I'm gonna be excited. You won't be. That's a personality trait. If you are that guy who gets
Yeah.
excited about a cinnamon stick, you get excited about the Lamborghini. If you're the guy who can't get excited about little things, it will never happen for you. I have to break it down to you. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Like,
No, this sounds amazing. And tell me like, is there something recent that has come across your work that, like in life, and I think in life I can already understand with the wedding and other things, but in at Nvidia, has there something come up like while you're researching that in the recent months, that has like surprised you and taken you by surprise in the sense that, oh, this is interesting. This could be because there's a lot of fad with AI, like there's a lot of noise,
yeah.
and I think part of your job is to sieve out signal to noise. So has there something that has caught your attention that was done like in the recent past?
Yeah, so a couple of things, honestly. One is I'm very, very pleasantly surprised by how good these coding agents and coding like review agents, coding agents that help you produce code, say from tools like Cursor to GitHub Copilot. That all has taken us by surprise, if we are being honest. Like now, for a lot of tasks that I would have earlier delegated to junior engineers, now I can see how these agents can just do it for me. That's one, and that's an insane signal, which I don't think we were anticipating that to happen this soon. That at least at that quality and at that level of proliferation, like everyone in NVIDIA now does this development on Cursor. So even though a lot of it is code adjusted, and even though a lot of stuff that we work on is out of distribution, because a lot of stuff that we do is proprietary, the tech stack isn't that
Right.
common across the world, but it's still working on those things. That's the surprising part. I would have imagined for in distribution workflows, which are, like if you're doing something like a backend or front end development, there's enough data out there for these models to be trained on. But even for out of distribution things, it has picked up. It's still not as good as it is for in distribution or slash common workflows, like if you're doing a day-to-day dev using front end and back end, but it's still good enough for at least doing reviews and doing the easy task, if not the hard part. So that has been very, very exciting. And like that
Yeah.
also has unblocked the ability for me to work on things that I do have little knowledge about, which is very cool. Like, hey, if I don't understand this piece of the world, I can spend some time with it. I can drop it in DeepWiki, which essentially creates documentation on the fly using agents. And then my ramp up time on any new technology has also decreased, which is very cool because that barrier
Yeah.
of entry, especially for people that are new, I think that's a huge thing. Like if I had to learn a new technology, it would take me 6 months because I get stuck and then I procrastinate, then I never come around to it. But now
Right.
that time has contracted. At least getting from 0 to 1 with any new technology is much easier today than it was 6 months ago. Sure, there are other economic challenges
Interesting.
that come along with it, but if you're
Yeah.
driven enough, now at least getting started is much easier than it would have been 6 months ago.
That's super interesting. And like, is there also any other scientific discovery that you read, like a paper that you read, like that really blew your mind? I think one that comes off to my head is like the one that was a deep article written on the neuroscience of using AI. That was like something that, surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people question that research as well. So basically, there was one study that came out on how your brain acts when it's using AI versus Google versus nothing when it has to, like, for example, write an essay on its own. And they were just showing that you're way more
Yeah.
stimulated when you're not using AI. And then,
Yeah.
people were blowing up, and it was interesting, but also I could see a lot of flaws. So is there something that, caught your eye as well in the last like
Yeah,
month or
so
so that you're
yeah,
like, okay, this could be interesting?
from that perspective, I think the they since the math Olympiad winning that all of these models did, that was crazy interesting. Because and if you like, I try to follow a bunch of people who do frontier math, and they I have started getting very excited about using AI to solve mathematical problems because like it kind of flips the narrative, right? Because these are the hardest intellectually challenging problems. But AI is jumping a lot farther on them than a lot of we know there are so many day-to-day shortcomings of AI, which it just falters over all the time. That said, same
Right.
models are now performing very amazing things at frontier math, and there are there was also some controversial research about how they're using AI to solve some of these top 100 challenges, which was still uncertain because the results for it are still to be out. But just in general, the frontier math capability of these AIs has been very interesting for me. Like I would not have anticipated it
Yeah.
jumping that at that part that this quickly.
Maybe you're a lead scientist at Nvidia, so you have a decade of experience in AI. Imagine now you were 22. You could be an undergrad in one of the colleges that we went to, or some of the even lower tier colleges. Would you go back to studying the way you did? You would look at Python, you would look at data structures and algorithms, you would, do a lot of programming before, getting a job or finding your, foot in the space. And or would you, how would you use AI at that point of time when you were 22, when you were like, you've heard all the buzzwords, you've not really used it for work per se, you've used it for all the fun part. How would life be different at 22 for
Yeah,
you?
yeah. So I've thought about this a bunch, and s- I think this will come down to essentially how curious you are. I know how tacky that sounds, but I might be even jealous of kids that are at 2021 because now you're like if previously I've had to design something when I was 2021, it took me 3 years to go from zero to say I want to develop an app that I might be interested in solving a need for me. That probably 0 to 3 year delta is now 6 months. It's still gonna take you 6 months. It won't be you have to at least learn the basics of things, but learning basics is now contracted by a lot. So if you have an idea that you are generally curious about, you can now solve for problems that were previously you could not solve for. And I think that's very powerful. Like if I see even in my like there are little problems everywhere that can be solved. So if I look at my family business, there are so much paperwork happening. There are so many regulations that you have to certify for. Like if I were a 21 year old kid, I would figure out, hey, there is this problem, say, which is based on some sort of uh, essentially paperwork, which is very common in India, that you have so many regulations that each business has to certify with. I would probably go and solve for that. Hey, that I'll take this small piece of, I'll develop an app for it, I'll develop a chatbot for it, and help people solve it. And I think that's the best way you can also learn. And now you are no longer bound by the ability to do it, because essentially AI will teach you and bring you along, and that is much easier to do today than it was when we were growing up. But the thing that you still have to bring to the table is curiosity. Like you have to be curious and you have to figure out the problem that you're trying to solve. And that is gonna be true, I think, forever. Everything, and even a lot of learning that I did personally was more of, hey, I wanted to develop, like if you have, so you have so many friends that, hey, they wanted to develop apps, they were just trying to learn about new things, and that's how it is.
Right.
And now it's easier than it was before. So that's, I would go, I think in general, I would like, if I were a 21-year-old kid, I would identify a problem that I'm trying to solve and then go wholeheartedly at it. Because even if it's not solvable today, I'm sure there are some pieces of it that are solvable now. And that has never been true in history before today. And that's a very powerful
Yeah.
enabler that everyone has now in their hands.
And how much would you trust the conventional university education, like pan global, like, not just India? I know
Yeah.
I would say that like engineering in India is like it's on you, like how much you want to take in.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like me, for example, are not, department toppers like you. So, we would not like pay so much
Yeah.
attention. But I'm wondering, like, how much would you rely on that? Like, how much would you rely on the conventional education now?
Okay, so I have been educated in India and I've been educated at DC and at Johns Hopkins. And both the cases, I don't think the education was of that much utility. Even the things that I learned were from YouTube videos that, hey, there's this particular professor from Stanford, which is the best at this thing. I just go up and look YouTube
Right.
videos of that thing. And the amount I learned from that
Right.
was always much, much greater than the professors, even at Johns
Yeah.
Hopkins, who were, some of them had field medals in computer science. They were the fanciest of the fancy people. And but they were not the best of teaching that one particular niche, right? So now with AI and like back then it was YouTube, but now with AI, I think the feedback that you can get quickly is insane. The thing that a good university or a college brings to you is peer group and motivation. Because if there are people around you learning, that you end up learning, I think that's pretty much what, in my head, any university education offers for most people. I'm sure there are some exceptions to this. Maybe there are like few, 4 or 5 schools in the world where you actually get
Right.
more out of just the education part of it. But I don't think that's true for 99.9% of the schools. Because this is a shared
So you would
experience.
say that like even for Delhi College of Engineering and John
Yeah,
Hopkins that you did in US, like you're saying a lot of the onus comes on the person, right? It
yeah,
is not a done deal. It is in a way just the starting step.
yeah,
And like I had when I was, in Delhi College and I was think about masters, I would think that if you get into a good college, again, the myth that your
yeah.
life is sorted afterwards. Like, people would be coming to your doorstep with a job offer. But that's not true at all, right? Especially now in last
Yeah.
5 years in COVID, that's never been the
Yeah,
case.
yeah. Yeah. Like, sure, like these act as filters for job applications, but if you're from a pure learning perspective, most curriculum is outdated
Right.
the day it's written. It's just the reality of the world, and it's
Right.
gonna be more true today than it was 10 years ago. Like DC was like our curriculum was 20
Yeah.
years old, so that was useless. Even at Hopkins, a lot of curriculum was useless,
Right.
and even though it was written like 2 years ago, because like I remember distinctly
Yeah.
remember people teaching like a professor teaching us LSTMs because that was his research, but attention had already come in. But he wasn't ready to accept that this is
Right.
gonna be the way of the world. So even
Right.
at frontier research places, you'll have people because everyone has their own inclination, and people tend to move slowly. So
Right.
it's gonna be outdated for most
Right.
intents and purposes, especially in computer science and AI.
Yeah. So this
That's
is
definitely true.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting. Talk to me about this. So you said that as if you're 22-year-old, you'd be a little bit jealous because you could just iterate so much
Yeah.
faster. But I believe that with so much iterations and like the pace of things moving in this space right now, there's also the other concern is what all is noise, right? Like you figured that out back then that LSTMs are not going to be a thing because attention is the big thing.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering like how do people, especially who want to enter this field, like there's a lot more noise right? To signal. Like, how do you develop that? So one is curiosity that you
Yeah.
said. How do you develop that filter of like, this is BS, and this is not going to help?
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is a lot of retrospective thinking, but I also like to think from so there are two things. Like if you're trying to filter what to work on, I would suggest that look at the amount of economic activity around it. Like if like how I like to think of AI infrastructure today and even back then a bit, but now definitely that people are spending trillions of dollars building GPUs. It's just infrastructure. You have to think of that as infrastructure. Like roads are infrastructure. Like your factories are infrastructure. AI infrastructure is nothing but GPUs in a data center that some people have to use. There are two things, there are two layers that you can work on, which are economically viable based on my understanding of the world. One is you can either be that person that helps make that infrastructure more efficient or help companies use that infrastructure better. And I don't think that's going away for the next 5 to 10 years because there is literally trillions of dollars have been spent. People will have to optimize around it. And I don't think there are enough people that have started learning and working on those things that hey, just go, like if I were a kid, go to Google. If you want to work on this layer, just go to Google Colab, Dev. You can find, like, I know Google definitely offers free GPU credit, so you can just do that. I know Brev, which is an Nvidia similar offering of notebooks that does that. I'm sure there are other options that I don't know. So go on there and start playing around with just playing around with GPUs. Like go use PyTorch, just play around with it, get familiar with it. Because even the portion of population that does that, that's too little. And given now the amount of infrastructure that's being spent, they're gonna be it's gone. People are gonna be required to optimize on it or know how it actually works. So I don't think that's going away. So if someone's interested, Ju- I would work on
Yeah.
that. That's one layer. And then there's a layer on top of it, which is AI application layer, which is, hey, there's already the rails for it. Now we can build applications around it, which is honestly what India does very well. Even in the earlier
Right.
Web 2.0 days, like we developed websites and mobile applications. Now that this world is gonna be of AI applications. But the thing about this world is it's gonna be very competitive because amount of work required to publish an AI application is very less today. So you have to focus on finding the right problem here than developing the right tech stack, if that makes sense. So there is a subtlety here
Right.
that because then your unfair advantage isn't the skills that you have developed. It's the problem that you're
Right.
trying to solve. But from a skills
But that
perspective,
has always been that's been with the masses as well, right? Where
yeah,
previously, like, the smarter ideas would come from the US, then they would be like, okay, this is exactly how you do it. Now outsource it to India.
yeah,
Like, so I would imagine now the outsourcing even gets lesser because
yeah,
now people can do it so quickly. Like, you almost have an agent sitting with you
yeah,
trying to help you. So it's always been that finding that key problem. But you're saying it's even more so now because the barrier to entry is no longer, you don't have to be a coder anymore
yeah.
for that barrier. The barrier to entry is like completely open now.
Yep. Yeah. So like then this is like again depending on the layer of tech stack you're approaching. If you're approaching the application layer, you have to be sure that you're solving a legit problem because the amount of learning you'll do may not be that much than it was previously, right? So previously, back in the day, even when we were developing applications for random ideas, like say, I remember building calculators and to-do apps and all those things
Right.
just for learning. I'm not sure how much even learning signal that you're getting now, just because it's so much easier and you don't have to do everything by hand.
Right.
So this is where the
Right.
idea aspect of it is more important today. But if you're a layer below this, I I think
Yeah.
that with that skill set is gonna be in big demand just based on the economics of the world. That hey, if that much amount of investment have gone somewhere,
Right.
you are gonna need people. and people care about GPU spend, cloud spend is a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's got, and if any company is developing something with AI, they're, and if they get enough users, they'll care for it. Like, cause
Right.
it's just like any infrastructure problem that you care about how much infrastructure you're using, how much ports are you using. It's similar, right? Like how much efficiently you can use this infrastructure, and that skill is
Right.
gonna be in demand. So if you're aiming for that, you can go for that, because even on a single GPU that you get for free in Google Cloud and all of these places, you can learn a lot from it. There are enough open source libraries that, hey, if you if this thing takes X amount of GPU compute, how do you split by half?
Yeah.
That skill, I think, is
Right.
gonna be in demand. And so that's one area of approach which is more, if you don't have, you want to work on the idea layer, if you just want to develop core skills, I think that's a
Yeah.
core skill of tomorrow that people should focus on.
Cool. I think that kind of reminds me of the whole gold rush problem as well, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're the one selling shovels, you don't need to worry about where the gold is.
yeah, exactly
And I
that.
think that really translates to what level of problem you're working on. So I think I have a challenge for you today. So
Mm.
you and I, like I worked at Amazon close to 10 years. You've been in this AI, in the cutting edge, like 0.1% of people who are working on this problem. I want you to help and think about people, mostly like, for example, people in India right now, and they're having a job and they want to make that transition to AI, or they're starting out their career. And as you can see, there's a lot of layoffs, like especially the junior level roles
Yeah,
are getting eliminated the most, because that's where the AI can assist you the most, is the boilerplate code and just getting up and running quickly, and then you hand it over to senior engineers who can fine tune it and make it more robust. So somebody starting out their career, I think this is a big enough problem in India and outside of India, where they're struggling to find jobs. Like, how do you land up a first role and then have experience? Because every job now needs an experience in AI. So, what you and I, let's take up this challenge. Like in the next few minutes, let's try to design a playbook, which is, maybe let's think about 4 steps that somebody in India and outside can take today in the next 6 to 9 months period, that they can arm themselves and be ready for landing their first AI role. And why I'm talking about AI role is more about, I don't want them to just learn AI so that they can get a first job that says we need AI, but it's actually a job that they can last in years, and that job will be
um,
there. So talk to me about this. Like, what are the steps that they need to take today in
okay.
the next for the next 6 to 9 months?
Okay, so yeah, before we start discussing the exacts of the playbook, let's first filter out the assumption that maybe we cater this towards people who are already some amount of basic coders, that they have some amount of programming skill. If we assume that, then on that assumption, then the getting started guide can be, there's this very nice course by Jeremy Howard, which is available for free, called on fast.ai, called Deep Learning for Coders, which is essentially just gets you the basics of deep learning right. And they have designed it for people with programming skills. So, like, you learn by doing, and it's just not theoretical math. Because if you Google how deep learning works, you'll get a lot of theoretical math. It's not might not be useful for most people. Like it's not even useful for me. It's useful for probably from a job perspective, 0.001% of people that are doing some frontier research. So I would suggest maybe that is a good starting point to just get the basics of deep learning right. That's one resource. You can probably find more similar resource than that. So that's one aspect of, hey, just developing some core skill sets around deep learning, just to know what it's about. It's not. It can't always sit behind a chatbot layer for you. It has to be that you have to know
Right.
how deep learning actually works. So I would see that as first a good starting step.
Is coding a prerequisite for that?
Yes.
Like, that's what I'm wondering. You
Yeah.
think coding is a prerequisite because
Yes.
that's where all the assignments, where you hands-on code it out
Yeah.
and you experiment,
Yes.
right? So in take me one step back. Take me even to the programming thing.
Yeah.
Like, what is the bare minimum you need to know? For example, if you can understand a Python code, you read it and you understand it. Is that the bare
Yeah.
minimum,
Yeah.
or you need to know a little bit more?
No, they just like you can look at the Python code, see what it's doing, and if it fails, you can debug it. Whether it's
Right,
with Google and just you have to have an understanding of how like coding is what this isn't C recipes,
right,
right? Like they are just steps that are happening. And if something going goes off, yeah, sure, at least understand what's going off and how does that things flow.
right.
Like it's a mental model. Like I like to think of a lot of it as just
Exactly.
mental models. So you have to have that basic mental model to build other mental models on.
Mhm. Yeah, so you just have the logic understanding of like how Python and other
Yeah,
or any other language works, but mostly Python. If you want to start today,
yeah,
the second thing you said is the Jeremy Howard course on Fast AI,
yeah,
about deep learning, and I think that's as theoretical as it gets. That's the minimum required because
yeah,
that will help you crack interviews. It will like help you talk more comfortably, more confidently about what deep learning is rather than just using the acronym there that okay,
mm,
this is how DL works.
yeah. And if also like this is a very good starting course, but if you look at a lot of people that are actually doing frontier research at say OpenAI, Hugging Face, a lot of these people took this course in 2019, 2020, and these were all a bunch of PhDs in
Right.
physics. They had nothing to do with AI. Like if you look at most frontier labs today,
Right.
none of them are coders. They were people from physics that transitioned into machine learning and deep learning, and a lot of people took this
Oh,
course,
interesting.
but a lot of people also just learned to do coding based on just their physics PhDs. And again,
Yeah, yeah.
so cause the thing is, this field is very new, so you can
Right.
transition over
And also
easily.
there's a big overlap between statistics and physics, right? Like you
Yeah,
would see the biggest traders back in 90s were physicians,
yeah,
like who were physicists. Like they would theoretical physicists would be the one cracking all the derivative and
yeah.
all those trading algorithms because it is essentially equation. So what's the next step? Like okay, we have that person has done the deep learning course, they
Yeah.
understand the basics.
Yeah, okay, now the third layer is try building some sort of an application using using some underlying library like say PyTorch or whatever your favorite uh deep learning library, JAX, TensorFlow, whatever you wanna use. PyTorch is probably the most common thing people use. What this gives you is uh, actually deploying an application at a slightly lower layer than say if you're just doing it via Replit or something, so that you can customize your deep learning model for a particular need. And that also tells you like gives you enough knowledge that hey, these are all the libraries that were used in building and solving this problem. So I would suggest then you go into building some sort of a project like that will be good.
Does the
Uh,
problem matter, Vibhu? Like does
no,
the problem matter in this case?
for this case, it's more of a learning objective that you're just solving for something. The another thing that you identify for this is all the libraries that you use, whether it's in the fast AI course or in the deep learning course, most of them are open source. And if it's a kid trying to break into AI, and that's the biggest signal that you can give me if I was recruiting people, is if that person has contributed some amount of code to open source, especially to any of these AI libraries. Like there are a lot of AI libraries that are out there. Some of them, like PyTorch, or say even a layer above at agent orchestration layers, there are a bunch of famous open source libraries. So if you contribute even some amount of bug fixes to them, that tells me that hey, this there's a proof of work now out there in the world. So and that's a great signal for anyone that is trying to build on it, because there are two things there. One, it's proof of work, and two, if the any of the companies that are using these libraries see that you understand this library this deeply to actually contribute to it, then they are like sure. And like there are always people that are required to be experts slash people that help companies transition to those software libraries. So I think that's especially for new people, that's I think a great stepping stone. And it's all open source. You can go, and even if you
Yeah.
don't end up contributing anything, you
So
can
in a
actually
way,
see how people do professional development. Like I never knew
right,
how to write up PR. I never knew how to write documentation.
right,
But just looking at it tells you that this is written by
right.
a human and your code should look similar to this. And that's great learning. So the amount of learning you'll do just by reading an open source library is much more than even at our day-to-day jobs, if I'm being honest.
So in this case, you're finding a problem, right? It's not you're solving a solved problem, because a lot of the, cheat work is like you understand a problem, like this is something I would do and this is something I would do completely incorrect growing
Yeah.
up. Like I would look at a code and I'm like, yeah, I can write this. I understand what this is. But what you're saying is pick up a new problem and try to solve it. This is where you find, okay, when I'm trying to do
Yeah.
when I'm trying to read some PDFs, the lang chain fails,
Yeah.
and then I need to. That's what you're talking about. Like if you're only solving problems that are exactly solved on
Yeah.
the internet and you're just copying it, it's
Yeah.
not going to help at
Yeah.
all.
You're not gonna learn anything.
Right.
Like you have to, cause
Yes.
as you know, code is always broken at some point of time. And if you're trying anything
Right.
new, you'll run into hiccups. And a lot of our jobs are just figuring out how to get over those hiccups. So
Right.
I think that's where the learning will happen.
Cool. So so now we have bare minimum Python code, somebody who has done the fast AI course on deep learning. Now somebody's built the project, and for that project they had to, add some or fix some bugs on one of the most famous public libraries, and that's just part of the project. And
Yeah.
now what's next? Is there anything next you would say, or this is a good enough start?
I think this is a great start. If you get me a resume which has done all of these, I think most companies, including Nvidia, will probably hire people like this.
Wow. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think the other thing that I've seen in some of my interviews that I've done at Amazon is people would have a very high level understanding, and they would straight away, jump into agents, and, and they're applying for a very core
Yeah.
science or, research problem. And they're actually working on those application layers, like creating chatbots. And I've created chatbots myself. That is sometimes what you have to do as part
Yeah.
of your scientist job. But without that underlying information, you can see through the cracks very quickly
Yeah.
in an interview. Do you agree with that? Like, do you think that you
Yeah.
can spot that in like
Def,
30, 45
like
minute
yeah,
conversation that,
yeah,
okay,
like
this person is like at a very high level?
yeah, like
Hmm.
honestly, even like in the first 5 minutes, like there's just some common questions. Like you can keep on going down the stack, and I can see where people stop having that understanding. So, like from software layer to the hardware layer, like I can it's and
Right.
like and I don't blame people for not understanding all the way through, but at least you have to have an understanding of how it's working, even if you don't understand all the layer down. So, but you can't be
Right.
just at the primary layer that, hey, you call this API and then magic happened. That's like
Right.
that can't be your
Exactly.
level of understanding.
Right. And like, but there are roles that need that understanding as well.
Yeah.
Like, there are roles that just need you to write APIs, and that's good. But you're saying that to have a sustainable, robust job
Yeah.
for the next 10 years, that's not going to cut it, because
Ye-
that is, a lot of people, that the barrier to entry there is very low
Yeah. Yeah. And
for that
honestly,
kind of
yeah,
role.
like even if the job requires you calling an API, you won't get hired if you just know how to call the API. That's the subtle difference. Like
Right.
people often, especially for big tech companies, the interviewing is the hard part. You can learn on the job, but cracking the interview actually requires more knowledge than maybe you'll probably use for the first 6 months of your job.
Right.
So
Have you done a lot of interviews for Nvidia? Is that part of your
I have, yeah,
like
in the
role?
past, I have done a bunch of interviews. I've slowed down now because like just don't
Yeah,
have
no,
time
that's
for
something
it.
that we fight within Amazon. Yeah, that's something we fight at Amazon, is like you need to upgrade the way we interview people.
Yeah,
Like, that is like you can't just give them, like, for a senior software engineer, like you can't just give them a data structure and algorithm problem that, is available on Leak Code, and
yeah,
they're never going to do that. Like that is something that I have a lot of uh, you know, personal dislike of. Like, why do you need to test this? It's never going to be in your job. If you want to ask logic, then go through logic, like
um,
understand projects. but don't give up a standard problem. Now, I think this is the next part of the challenge. Like, I'm wondering, like, we are both from Delhi, and we're now both in US, working for the FANG companies, and again, as you said, like, been very lucky, been very grateful for what we have. I'm trying to think about the larger population in India. So this is like the tier two, tier three cities, like people, you know, um, let's say who can even barely speak English.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think with this technology, or like even without so much involvement of AI, like we can get them a job ASAP? And that's something that I work with, Freedom Employability Academy. And this is a question we constantly ask, because tier two, tier three cities is something we can't even imagine unless you go there. Because, growing up in Delhi, like we went to probably private schools and then went to a very good university. Those people have, very different levels of problem. For example, the nearest toilet is like, 500
Yeah.
meters walk. So that's a very different level of problem. But I'm wondering, at what level do you think that if somebody's listening to this conversation, so if somebody's listening to this conversation, they already speak English, right?
Yeah.
That's the bare minimum because they can understand this. Now I'm wondering, like, for somebody like that, and give them maybe a 5 to 7 year period, do you think those people can get up to like a 40 lakhs per annum or 60 lakhs per annum packages? Like, that is something that, that is, well, in a way, you imagine, like, before we ended college, we
Yeah.
were 18, 19,
Yeah.
nobody would hire us.
Yeah.
But those 4 years, and we didn't even put in that much effort, we were able to secure such high paying jobs. I'm wondering, like, what are the core skills, non-technical and technical? Like, is
Yeah.
there a playbook that we can define for a general population in India to get to this like kind
Yeah.
of financial freedom, and for them to be able to support their families?
Yeah.
That's a harder question that we always try to
Yeah.
answer, but
I'm
talk to me about it. So bare minimum is English,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Let's
So
start there.
yeah, I'm trying to see. So like essentially, if from a hiring perspective, what you're looking for is signal at the end of the day. The university name was one signal that even if we didn't put in enough effort, they had signal that hey, this guy cracked a competitive exam, is probably competent enough, can converse in English, so probably can hold a job and be professional at that job. Now, if you're coming from a tier two, tier three college, unfortunately, the reality is you have to figure out a signal which is not your college. So that has to be some sort of proof of work that you did and that people can look up. So in my head, the problem is figuring out how do we get you from where you are at today to some sort of proof of work that hey, you have done something that is useful and people can look at it and be like, hey, yeah, this guy is competent. Let's give this person a shot. Now, I think for that person, one is definitely you have to be like we were given this privilege that we are fluent in English, can which is an unfortunate reality that is still a requirement for most jobs in India, like especially the high paying ones. So that's the world we live in. So you have to first solve for that. Then
Yeah.
the other thing that you have to probably solve for is technical skills, which you'll have to pick up using YouTube and try building projects that are you can start building like I this is what I did even at Hopkins. Like I used to look up projects that kids from Stanford were doing and take inspiration for them and modify my own projects according to what these people are doing, and that's all published online. So because even figuring out an idea is hard, especially when you're getting started.
Right.
So I would look at
Right.
like Stanford publishes it, Berkeley publishes it, most big places publish their kids, even student projects, which is a thing that we don't do in India, but they do, and that's a signal for even recruiters there. So I would try to figure out something from that list that feels interesting to me and try to build it at least some part of it on my own without copying over the code. That will require a lot of
Right.
self control that hey, I can just look up and figure it out. But maybe if you even if you look it up, you first spend an hour or two trying to do it on your own so that even when you're looking it over and
Right.
copying it, you learn more. And I'm sure you can put your own twist to it. Like if you spend any time with a lot of time with any problem, you can probably put a twist to that project. So maybe I would approach it like that. And building that project will require you building some skills. So maybe I'll look at building those skills based on that. Like I would go top down, like depth first in terms of learning these things.
Right.
Special and rather than that first cause that first learning, you can learn a lot of things, but tend to forget them. A lot of them will feel useless to you. If you're like me, a lot of it will feel useless. Like why I'm learning, because
Right.
especially a lot of learning in India, like yeah, I have no
Sure.
clue where I'll use this. So, but if you have
Yeah.
something that you already have in mind that you're trying to build, I think a lot of learning will also feel useful. So you actually learn. Maybe I'll approach it like that.
Right. And then I think the other things could be like definitely reach out to people. Like, you
Yeah,
should be having a LinkedIn, like day zero, you should be
yeah,
having your LinkedIn. You should be, even if you're not posting anything, you should be just reading what counts. Like, in the corporate world, like what counts as a good
yeah,
accomplishment. That's how you benchmark.
yeah,
Because that's the biggest problem in tier two, tier three, right? Like we were in tier one college, like our seniors and people around us, like, people were just overachievers.
yeah,
So you would constantly be benchmarked. Like there was no way you were not benchmarked. But in a tier two, tier three cities, it's so hard to find a
yeah.
benchmark.
No, that's
And
fair.
I think
Very
that's
fair
where they
point.
need to reach out. And the other thing is like, what about AI? Like, so like for generic roles, like I'm thinking more about next 5, 10 years, like for these people to find a high paying job, I can't imagine a role that does not involve AI. Like either explicitly,
Yeah.
which is like a job requirement has you to do AI, or implicitly that your work can be automated, can be made faster. So tell me a few tools that they can use. So for example, I think that if you're just using chat GPT and you're thinking you've mastered AI, you need to be woken up from your dream. That's
Yeah.
not reality anymore. You might be thinking that you're very good at prompt engineering, that you can, write very creatively to ChatGPT to get answers. But what are some other tools that they need to have in their belt to be standing out, when they apply for applications? Or, as you said, not through just writing it on their
Yeah.
resume, but through the proof of work that they have played around with this.
I
And maybe now let's focus a little bit more first on non-technical part, like, not like very hands-on coding. For example, when you were saying like, like renting a GPU and
yeah.
training on it. But I'm wondering like from the other spectrum of non-technical people.
So yeah, I'm trying to think. So I like if I look at even so the role that my girlfriend does, which technically was a consultant role, but now increasingly is an AI role, where what her company provides is essentially regulation automation to a lot of big tech companies, say even Facebook or something. Like if there are some regulations that they have to comply with. Previously, it was a manual process that is now increasingly being automated. And that just requires her figuring out like even a workflow which is drag and drop, but figuring out how to gather requirements from people and building a workflow which is like, hey, there's this regulation and there's this workflow. Is it automatable? Can this be automated today? And if yes, what are the basic tools and how do you prompt LLMs? What kind of do you want to use an agent? Do you not want to use an agent? Do you want to do deep research? Just some tweaks around it. So just having that basic understanding of what an LLM is, what an agent is, even for non-technical roles, like, and I've been seeing this personally, is becoming increasingly important because a lot of things that you would previously do manually are now being done with assisted AI. So having that understanding, I think, is still useful for even the non-technical roles that, hey, what actually is an LLM? It's not a chatbot, right? Like there are other things
Right.
behind the scene happening too. So I think having that understanding
Exactly.
might be very, very helpful for most roles in the future, especially for the new
Yeah.
roles.
And I think just for this, you need like a
the bare minimum is like speaking English, having a laptop,
Yeah.
having internet connection, and you should be unstoppable. But again, as I said, it's like a 5 to 7 year journey. If
Yeah.
you have not touched anything in the tech and you want to build like a more robust career, then it's definitely a 5 to 7 year
Yeah.
journey. Um, and then one quick question, like I think I've always thought of you as somebody who's been at the right place at the right time. Is that true? Like, do you think what is the skill that it takes to be that right person at the right time? Like, is that something that you think about as well? Like, for example, when you landed at your internships, your jobs, John Hopkins, Nvidia, how has that happened? Like, how do you develop that nuance of picking up signal in a lot of noise? I think that to me stands out for you. I maybe I'm wrong here.
I think like I have to be honest, like this, a lot of it was luck. Like no one could have predicted that Nvidia and AI could be that big in 2017, 2018. If you could have predicted, you would be a multi-billionaire by now because you had to have bet money on the stock market. So that's one basic assumption. The second thing, and I think of this in hindsight, don't think I was thinking of this when I was growing up. I still like to think a lot of it just comes down to I think about problems from a business perspective too. And I've always tended to do that. That is this
Mhm.
actually useful from an economic perspective? Even at Nvidia, there are projects that you work on, and I keep questioning my manager and my leadership on that. And people a lot of times hate me for it, like because you also want to do cool stuff, which is fine. I understand it. I do it all the time. But cool stuff and business and something which is economically viable are often sometimes they are
Right.
intersected and that's where the
Very
money is,
there.
but they can be
Yeah.
completely different circles lying on different patterns.
Right.
So I think that's some signal that I try to look for even today. And maybe
Mm.
was kind of doing that growing up, but I don't think I can take credit that, hey, I was. A lot of this is hindsight knowledge
Yeah.
that I
No,
wasn't
absolutely.
thinking later on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you can mansplain it like looking back, but
Yeah,
a lot of it is luck but that understanding of where the money is,
yeah.
right? Where the money goes. That's one of the easiest way to track something that is, going to last or not.
Yeah, like
And
I think that's the
yeah,
signal and money, and if the problem that you're solving is actually a problem, like you have to just ask that question,
right,
and a lot of sick noise goes away. Just those
right.
two things might be helpful from a filter,
Yeah,
but I agree, like there's a lot more noise today
yeah.
than we had for growing up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if yeah.
No, absolutely. And just one last question, like how do you stay up to date with all this stuff that is happening in AI? Like what are your most important go-to information sources? Because again, you have to filter out a
Yeah,
lot of the noise from the signal.
X. I think going on Twitter or X is probably and try to follow the right people that like follow
Mm,
Andre Kapati, follow Jamie Howard, try to follow the non-company PR signals that put out there. Just follow people that you're like, hey, this is one person that I think I respect, like, and just follow that and try to follow other people. That's one signal. Second is I listen to a lot of podcasts in general because I
mm,
think that's also a great signal for you to learn, especially if you want to get a longer primer on how people think about things. I think podcasts are a
mm.
great medium. I follow quite a bit of them on YouTube. So those are
Awesome.
the two information sources I rely on.
No, sounds great, man. Thanks, Vibhu. This was a great conversation. I wish you another 100x on your Nvidia at this time. I hope you hold it. Don't sell any stock, or maybe
Be
you do. I
as
don't know.
yeah,
What?
be as financially responsible as you can be. That's one learning.
Yeah, that's how asymmetry works. If you win,
Yeah.
you win big. Otherwise, you just lose everything. Worst, worst financial advice ever.
Yeah.
Hold on to Nvidia stock for another 100x. Yeah. No, I was reading some stat. It said that Nvidia, like 70% of Nvidia employees are millionaires, and another 10% are like decimillionaires, like some stat like that. And I was like, wow, like this is
Yeah,
crazy. You
I
would go into the
yeah.
office and they're like Bugatti's parked.
I know, man. It's a strange piece of universe that has ended up in our states.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, man. Cool, man. Take care and
Cool.
like the best of luck for the wedding. And
Thanks a
like we'll
lot,
keep in
man.
touch, man.
Yeah, it's always great catching up with you, Nikhil.
That was one very interesting conversation with Mr. Vibhu Jawa. I learned a lot about how Nvidia works, how he as a person. I have seen him after years, so this was definitely a good catch up. If you like this content and you want us to share more, please go comment, like, and share and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much.